The Supreme Court of India is the most overworked apex court in the world.
The work which we do between 10:30 and 4 every day in the Supreme Court is a fraction of the work which we do. Every judge of the Supreme Court works for 7 days in a week.
Court vacations are not a luxury but a necessity. Critics argue that these extended breaks contribute to judicial delays and backlog.
What people don't know is this, that most of the time in the vacation is spent on preparing judgments which you have kept in reserve.
To confuse and conflate the backlog in the system and link it to the judge's vacations demonstrates a complete lack of context and perspective. In recent years, there has been significant public debate regarding vacations that judges of the Supreme Court of India and of various high courts are entitled to. Critics argue that these extended breaks contribute to judicial delays and backlog. However, such perspectives are often deprived of context and are based on being completely unaware of the working of our courts. Such perspectives often overlook the immense effort that is expended in delivering each judgment in the Supreme Court of India. Let's begin with some statistics that will offer a reality check on the claims that vacation breaks lead to judicial delays and backlogs. The Supreme Court of India is the most overworked apex court in the world. A judge of the Supreme Court of India typically decides 1,400 to 1,600 cases each year. This should be contrasted to the UK Supreme Court, where on an average 16 cases are decided by a judge in a year, and also further contrasted to the United States Supreme Court, where approximately 80 cases are decided by the entire court in the whole year. The number of working days for a judge of the Supreme Court in India is way above other countries in the common law world. The Indian Supreme Court works for 190 days each year, whilst the UK Supreme Court works for 160 days and the US Supreme Court works for about 80 days only. The number of filings at the Supreme Court of India can go up to 80,000 cases a year. Now, this is 10 times more than what is filed before the United States Supreme Court, and the annual filings at the UK Supreme Court stands at a mere 250 per year. The volume of litigation that Indian Supreme Court is handling is unprecedented by any standards. Despite this, about 76% of the cases filed in the Supreme Court are decided within a year of their filing. Now, the critics often lack the understanding of how onerous judicial work indeed is. To presume that if judges are not holding court, they must be holidaying is a proposition that has no insight of what it takes to deliver a judgment in the apex court. Hearing arguments of lawyers, often lengthy, in court is just one part of judicial work. The bigger and more onerous task is analyzing such arguments, arriving at a judicious view, and thereafter framing and drafting detailed judgments. This also involves enormous research and study. To argue that judicial delays occur because judges receive extended vacations is far from truth and reality. Quite to the contrary, judges in India are overworked to the brink of exhaustion. The problem that Indian judiciary faces is the volume of litigation and the minuscule number of judges in the country. In India, there are 21 judges per million population, and this is abysmally low by any international standards. No doubt, the Indian judiciary needs more judges, more infrastructure, and also some reform. But to confuse and conflate the backlog in the system and link it to the judge's vacations demonstrates a complete lack of context and perspective. Court vacations are not a luxury but a necessity. Given the immense workload, complexity of the cases, and the additional responsibilities borne by the judges, most part of the vacations are consumed in preparing and writing judgments which are typically pronounced immediately after the vacations. Court vacations only ensure that judges can continue to perform their duties effectively, delivering justice fairly to all.